if we could practice, and again, it's a daily practice, to see every single person, regardless of where they're from, as an individual, then the world would be so much better for it, because then I get to know Solène, not as a Caribbean woman, but as Solène. Okay, what's your story? What do you like? Let me understand you, not as part of a label, but for who you are and what you stand for.
Well, hi there, and welcome to a Sit With Me podcast. My name is Solène, and I am your host. And today, on this beautiful episode, we are joined by Veronica. Veronica is a friend of mine that I met a couple of months ago at this meditation course that I attended. She was also in attendance, and we connected that way. And at first, I wanted to talk to her about the meditation that we just learned, but then she sent me her link and her work, and I was like, her website, and I was like, oh, you're coming on the show to talk about that. It is so much more interesting, and I want to hear everything about it. I had the pleasure to attend one of her workshop because Veronica is the head box unmaker at Unmaking Boxes, and we're going to talk about that later in the conversation. But yeah, I thought it would be such a great conversation to have. We talk about unmaking boxes and love and compassion, and there's so many nuggets of enlightenment and so many life advice and so many thought-provoking things that she's saying in the conversation. I loved every second of it. I'm so glad that she accepted to sit down with me. I'm so grateful that she accepted to share her beautiful life, her beautiful light with me and with us. And I'm not going to talk any longer. It was a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much, Veronica. And without further ado, come and take a sit with Veronica. And serious face. How are you, Veronica? How are you right now?
I'm good right now that I see your face, your beautiful
Yes.
smile. I'm good, and I'm really excited to be on your show.
I'm so excited to have you. You're the first person that I asked that I felt bold enough to ask, actually. And you were okay, and I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, she said yes. So I'm really happy that you're here, that we can talk. Because we met at this meditation course, and it was like 10 days that I couldn't speak to you, but I was like, because I did not know that we could speak the last day. I was very unaware what was going to happen in that meditation course. I just went there and I was like, oh my God, I wish I could just, I don't know, like eye contact. Can I like slip her a note or something? Can I just let her know that I like her smile, just that, And I was really, when we got to talk, I was really like so happy that we get to connect. And then you send me your work and making your box, on making boxes, which we're going to talk about. And I was like, oh, she needs to be on the show. It's more than just like, because at first I wanted to talk about the meditation, but then you send me your link and I was like, oh no, she needs to be on the show. She must be on the show to talk about unmaking boxes. So I'm really glad that you're here.
And like I already told you, I've been listening to your episodes. As soon as you invited me on the show, I'm like, take a seat with me. Let's see what it's about. And I just feel what you're doing is very important, uplifting not just women. I thought it was primarily women, but you totally explained to me that it was everyone, just setting them that love and giving them concrete tools to show them how to do it. So I feel what you're doing is very important. So that is why I am honored.
Thank you. It
to be
feels
the first guest on your show.
That's now I want to bring people on, because it's like I feel like I've been talking to myself a lot, and I was like, okay, enough. Like, what about the purpose of the show is taking a seat with me and not just me talking to myself. So I really wanted to bring people on to bring their insight, and I feel like what you're doing with Unmaking Boxes is very important. And we have this little thing in common, which is quite interesting. We are both from the Caribbean. We both have some Caribbean origin. You're from Haiti and I'm from Guadeloupe, which are kind of like neighboring little island. But
French speaking island.
Exactly. But in your workshop, you did say that you are from the US, and I didn't know that. Or
no, I'm from Montreal, and we have that in common.
Yes,
because we studied in Montreal, and I was born and raised in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So it's funny how things overlap.
Yes,
but we definitely have that in common. I've been in Berlin for 10 years, and I chose Berlin because I felt like it was a big Montreal. Like, I love
Really?
Montreal. But Berlin, you know, is for me like Montreal times 10.
That's fair enough. I do prefer Berlin to Montreal. I spent 4 years in Montreal for my degree, and it's not my favorite. To be honest, I love the people that I met there. I loved my school, but Berlin is. I feel like it's so much better. But yeah, we did have that in common. And actually, reading about you, the more I was reading about you, the more it felt like I was reading about myself, because you have this love for like mathematics and arts and running and writing and film production and marketing and dancing, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is me, like this is. It feels like you're just like me. You're exploring like different parts of yourself. And while I was reading that, I was wondering, because I could see myself in you, and I was like, how did you how did you honor all of these parts of yourself without having to choose one? Because my thing was like, I feel like I have to choose one. All of these things that I love, which are sometimes at two opposite sides of the globe, mathematics and arts, for example. How do you honor all of these parts of you while still without giving in the pressure of like choosing one? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I'd like to start by saying that you are not the only one who felt that you had to choose one track or one path and stick to it. Growing up, being Haitian Canadian, I grew up with two older brothers. So already there, you're a younger sister and you want to do what your older brothers do. So
Yeah.
I got my yellow BMX at a very young age, and that was freedom for me. And so that was, I feel like, almost the beginning of tasting that liberty of my yellow BMX on the street with the neighborhood kids, just doing our thing, creating our own adventures. And so already I had this mentality as my brain is still forming that, hey, man, I could do anything. The only thing we had to do as kids is be home for dinner. We grew up in a neighborhood. Just be home at 6 for dinner. Otherwise, you don't get hurt. Just come back in one piece. And so already at a very young age, I had that taste for adventure. So I don't think it's
Oh.
such a leap from there to be, oh, I like to draw. Oh, but I also, at the same time, I love to read. I love math. I really love algebra.
I love it, and
I love
I'm
it.
so sorry when people say they hate it, because I'm like, that was my favorite thing. And you want me to be honest with you? I'm not gonna show it, but I have two apps on my phones to solve equations. I love it. I love solving I love it. It was my favorite thing to do. It's just fun for me. I was almost the kind of kid that would ask for more homework. I love it. I loved it. But I also have this love for dance, and because I come from a very artistic. My mom was dancing and painting and singing, etc., etc. So was my grandmother. She loved paint. She loved arts, etc., etc. But I do see in your childhood, I feel like the difference was that maybe you had a childhood that encouraged that in a way. Would you say that you have, because like running around with the kids and your yellow BMX, I feel like some people don't necessarily have that encouragement, so they feel all these parts within themselves, but as soon as they step outside, it's like, oh, like you don't get to have a yellow BMX as a little girl, for example, right? Like, no, I don't know, you jump ropes. I don't know what we were supposed to do, but you know what I mean. Feels like you had the chance to like explore that from a very young age, and it was one of my questions, like, were you like that from childhood, or is it something that developed over time? But apparently it's like from your childhood that you could feel.
It's a very interesting question because I do feel like as a child, my mom especially is like, do what you want, be as your brother. She didn't say, hey, as a Haitian girl, you have to learn how to cook and clean. My mom was not like that. She's like,
Me
you
neither.
go
Yeah.
outside, you play. As long as you have good grades, I'm
Yep.
happy. But having said that, when it came time to choose a career path, oh boy, was my mom practical. She's like, what, you want to become a doctor?
There's a little
Can a doctor,
list.
a nurse,
There's a list that is available to
a
you.
lawyer? Like my brother took the lawyer path, a businesswoman. Like, what is it that you will do that will allow you to make money and secure your future, at least so that you are financially stable in the future. And how it works in Quebec, and I don't know if you remember this, after high school, after grade 11, we go to college
Yes.
for 2 years and you
Yes.
pick your pre-university program. After college, you go to university. So in college, my mom was like, "What's it gonna be?" And I was like, "I am going to study cinema." And she's like,
Ah.
"Oh, okay." But she let me, she let me study cinema. I was still at that time living under her roof. So she could be like, "Oh, no, you're going to study something else."
Yeah.
And I loved it. And in university, I studied communications, and that included film, television, sound, photography, like all the things I love,
Yes.
writing, public relations. Communications in university included everything. And so thanks to my mom, kind of like, even though she wanted me to be financially stable, she never discouraged me from going after why I wanted it. If anything, my graduation gift after high school was a camera because she knew that I was interested in making movies. So she got me a camera, and boy, was I filming everything, like everything and anything.
You know that I study film, that I study
Yes, that's
cinematography
why
as well.
we have so much in common.
It's
And
crazy.
how is it with you, by the way? Did your parents encourage you to study whatever it is you wanted to do?
I think, yeah, I think there's a mix of, first of all, my mother is really, I grew up with my mom, raised by my mom and my grandmother, and then my father. It's a complicated story. Now he's back, but I grew up primarily with my mom and my grandmother. And I remember very early on, my mom was very like, you're happy, I'm happy. So as a kid, I was like, okay, yeah, I just have to be happy, right? And because she herself is a very artistic person, and she had the very serious job, but also she had this creative life. So she was very happy with me exploring photography and exploring all this stuff that I love, you know. And but the thing is, I put more pressure on myself than she ever did, which we're gonna talk about that later. But she never had to force me to do anything because I was like, I'm figuring my life out. I was like 8 years old. What am I gonna study? What am I gonna, you know what I mean? Like I was the one doing research on the career path, etc. So she did not have to do that because I was the one doing it for myself. I was the one telling her, no worries, mom. I got this. I know what I'm gonna do. And so I studied international law. I loved science. Very early on, I was very interested into like the professional world and what were the best decisions, for better or for worse. I'm not saying that this was the best thing for me to do. However, I feel like she never had to force me to force me down the path because she knew that I was very serious at school. I was very serious. I got good grades, and when you have good grades, like you were saying, you are kind of free to do whatever you want. For me, it was like I have good grades, so it's like you cannot really, when a kid had good grades, you cannot really. There was nothing to punish, in a way. So I studied international law, international relations, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. And I think that for me, it was more, I was able to explore everything that I wanted to explore. Because then when I said, oh, I'm going to study film, she was like, okay. And then when I said, I'm going to live in Berlin, she was like, okay. It was more, I was more announcing my choices more than she. And I don't know where, I
So
guess I saw that from her. I don't really know. I don't really know how that happened, but yeah.
you never got pushback on your choices.
No, because I think that as I was growing up, if I come to you telling you that I'm doing something, just know that she knows that I've done the research. I'm not just telling you like, oh, I think I'm gonna do that. It's first I think, I do the research, and so she knows that if I tell her I'm going to study film in Canada, she knows that I've done the freaking research. She knows that he's motivated by something. That I'm not just doing things on the limb, which I'm trying to do more. I'm trying to be a little bit more spontaneous with my choices, but no pushbacks, no pushbacks. Always like, well, okay, girl, I don't feel like I can tell you no anyway. So that's pretty much. Yeah, I think it's hard to tell me no when I have my head like when I have my eyes set on something. I think it's hard.
But you have a plan,
I
you
guess.
do your research, you know what you wanted. So it's hard to argue with someone who has a plan and the steps to get to that goal.
For
So
better
good
or
on
for
you.
worst, for better or for maybe sometimes it's I have too much of a plan and I'm like too strict and my eyes are too set on something. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like for better. Sometimes it's great when you have a kid who's like, I know what I want, I know where I'm going, but also it's like you don't need to know everything. You don't need to know already everything. You don't need to be sure. Like you don't need to be you don't need to have a whole plan for the next 5 years in order to start something. Is that you know what I mean? Like it's
I know exactly what you
I
mean.
wish, sometimes like let it go. Now that's what I'm learning. Like just let it go, girl. You don't need to have a plan. Do you want to do something? Okay, go for it. You don't need to have a whole plan for the next 5 years. Just to put the first can you I'm the vision, yes, not the plan. You cannot you know what I mean? You don't need to know how you're gonna get there. So that's pretty much.
I was listening to a very interesting podcast yesterday because I'm a
Yeah, you
podcast
told me. You told me.
addict. So, and it's called 10% Happier with Dan Harris. Not sure if you've heard about it. It's a mindfulness podcast. And the guest was director John Woo, who directed Crazy Rich Asians and Step Up. And he is the director for Wicked that's coming out or has already came out. Anyway, so I love what they both said. Dan Harris said that we shouldn't be focusing on the noun of what we want to be, but more the verb, meaning, let's say, I want to be a writer. Instead of saying, oh, I'm sorry, this is not Dan Harris. This podcast was Adam Grant,
Okay.
Work Life with Adam Grant, and he was interviewing John Woo. Okay, so the podcast name is Work Life with Adam Grant. It's a TEDx podcast, and he was interviewing director John Woo. And Adam said that we should be focusing not so much on the noun of something, like I want to be a writer, but rather the verb, I write, therefore I am a writer. And John Woo was, you are what you do every day. And I couldn't agree with that more. So it's okay to have a plan, but you actually have to do that thing you want to do every day for it to come to fruition because nothing's just gonna happen.
Yeah, like don't wait. And that I think that's the little difference for me. It's like don't wait to have certain things or to reach certain point. For example, don't wait, I don't know, to have a laptop or to have the perfect pen and the perfect paper to start writing. Don't wait to like I don't know what you do to write, to have the perfect software to write. Just write today on what you have and then you are a writer. And tomorrow you are a writer. Tomorrow you are, it's about doing, like you say, it's about doing the verb instead of waiting for like the certain things to be in place.
Right. And this is something you've also mentioned in your podcast in a previous episode about the consistency, being consistent in order to develop the habit.
Yeah.
Just do it every day. And you don't have to make it so overwhelming that it's 1 hour every day. You start with 5. Just 5 minutes every day if you want to be a writer. Just write 5 minutes every day. And I guarantee that will grow to 10, 15, 20. And then it's just to have that habit in your mind that your whole body needs to write every day.
Absolutely. And it's something that I am learning. For me, it's just because I want to do everything big and everything perfect the first time. You know what I mean? It's like if I want to be a writer, then I'm gonna write 2 hours a day, and and it's like no, just a little bit every day, just being consistent with whatever it is that I want to be, whatever it is that I want to achieve long term, a little bit every day, and no pressure, just like no pressure whatsoever. I'm realizing, and we're gonna talk about making boxes. I have my box. One of the things that I realized was that I am my biggest obstacle. You have your box as well. I am my biggest obstacle. I am the person who, my biggest bully, quote unquote. And it's a box that I'm trying to, to unmake. But talking about your boxes, because I really want to talk about the boxes and the unmaking of it. You wrote, and I quote, "There is no time like right now to unmake your box and create your own adventure. You are not a box. You are your own story. Every single story is different, and your story matters." And I want to talk about that because I want people to understand what is the box and what does unmake your box means. Because I know what it means because I know you, and I went to your workshop, and I've looked at your work. But what does unmaking your box mean, and what is the box?
Thank you for that beautiful question. And I just feel really privileged to be able to explain my whole unmaking box concept to a larger audience. So I used to say when I was younger, there is no box. I used to say there is no box, meaning, oh, there are no limitations. Just do whatever it is you want to do, no box. As I grew older, I realized that there was, in fact, a box. And this box represents what everyone assumes about us, expects of us, the limitations that they try to impose on us, and what we're supposed to do, to like, to be, to say, fill in the blank. It also represents unconscious biases that people have about us. And that's a little tricky that I like to explore with you more later. Mm-hmm. So I realized that there is a box. Right? It's not just an illusion. So the first step for me to unmake the box is to be aware that there is this box that represents all the limitations that others try to impose on us and that we often impose on ourselves. Very often. You said it yourself, you are sometimes your biggest obstacle. And that goes for everyone. And as much as we like to think that we are masters of our own mind and we could do whatever it is, we need to decondition so much programming that has been imprinted on us since we were born and that we've internalized and we've set rules for ourselves. I cannot do this. I cannot say this. I cannot have this. I cannot be this. And so in order to do that, we just have to first be aware that there is this box. As arbitrary as it is, it's there. So that is the first step.
Mm-hmm. Of the first step of the whole, unmaking the box. And I loved it because, as soon as you sent me the link, I was like, it makes so much sense. And I've never thought about it like that. I never thought about the box. And actually, before we record this episode, we talked briefly. So I said to a friend that, you accepted to be on the podcast. And we're going to talk about unmaking boxes. And we were walking in the park. And actually, we had like a 5-10 minute conversation about our own boxes. And of course, it was full of jokes, etc., etc. But we actually had a conversation about, oh my God, maybe I have to undo that box and undo that box. And she was like, oh my God, I have so many boxes to unmake and to undo. And so I feel like as soon as people get the concept of it, of what you just explained, that it triggers something immediately. Because at first you're like, I'm making boxes, I don't get it. But as soon as you get it, you're like, oh my God, I am in a box. I've put myself in a box. I've accepted to be put in a box by other people. And you call it a project. I call it like a mission, a movement, a concept. I think it's something that is beyond, something that is so much bigger. And what was the moment where were there a turning point when that became a mission for you? When you were like, okay, I'm going to help people unmake their boxes.
Well, my mission is to create stories and projects that incite curiosity, communication, compassion, connection, and creativity. I call these my 5 C's. They're my 5 values. And as part of that mission, yes, I'm calling it Unmaking Your Boxes, but it's nothing new if you think about this concept. You could call it
Yeah.
deconditioning the habit patterns of the mind. It's not a new concept, but I somehow, it's this visualization of the box is so strong that I use the box as the perfect metaphor in order to do this, because it's something that we could also actually see, visualize, and do. So at what point, to answer your question, at what point, I think it was always inside of me that I know that I tried to do this for myself, not be so judgmental about other people, not be so judgmental about myself. But it was only in 2022, I believe, that I decided to call it Unmaking boxes. That I decided to brand it as such so that, I could start this movement, as you so kindly put it, to help other people unmake their boxes.
And so
And the,
so you
yeah.
had so you had that in you. So where was there a moment where you felt, was there a first moment where you felt the box? Does that make sense? Because for me, when I was, preparing the interview, I realized that actually the first moment that I felt the box was when I moved to Montreal, so pretty later in life, before I went to university. Yes, because because I became black. And I know it sounds odd, and it's something that people black people specifically who immigrated later in life, I know they can relate to that, because I had a conversation in Montreal, for example, black African people or black Caribbean people, where all of a sudden we became, I understood was that what that mean, because in the Caribbean, on my island, I'm not black. I mean, it's not a thing. Everyone is black, so no one is black. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, we don't define by black or white. There's so many shades of us. There's so many. So it was not a thing. But I remember, by preparing this interview, I was like, when was the first time that I felt the box? When was the first time that I was like, oh, I feel kind of it. I'm within something that is not, that is put on me, a limitation that is put on me, an identity that is put on me, and it's actually when I moved to Montreal. And I was like, I was treated differently. I was looked differently. I was called differently. I was, how can there was different expectations from me, from my behavior, and it's like being followed in stores. This is what? Like, this is, it would never happen to me in the Caribbean. I am the least, no one cares about me in the Caribbean. Know what I mean? Like, I'm the least threatening person ever. But all of a sudden, I moved to this country, to this big country, and all of a sudden, I am in that box. And so for me, I think, as far as I can remember, it was when I went to university and I moved to Montreal. Now I can say that. At the time, I didn't know that it was a box, but for me, it was the first time that I really like, oh, that's a box.
Oh, I'm really sorry to hear about this experience, but at the same time, interestingly enough, I grew up in Montreal, but to hear your experience about growing up in an island where, hey, like
Everybody looked like me.
no, people are not paying assumptions on me because I look like everyone else. I've never experienced that. And I would be very interested to know how that feels like. You know, I've actually experienced growing up in Montreal, but at the same time, not to use the word sheltered, I didn't have a box around me. Perhaps I was naive, but when you grow up in something, right, just like you did not know that people are not supposed to, that they would place you in a box in Montreal, I also, growing up, did not know that there was a box. Even though my school, my elementary school was 99% Italian, you know, only a few black kids. My high school, we were two black kids. College, two black kids in my program. University, again, two. I call me naive, but race, growing up, never really came to play in Montreal. I don't know why it should have, when you're the only, in a space. It's only when I moved to Berlin and I formed a community of Black women, and I'm like, wow, this is so empowering to be in a community of Black women. I'm like, man, I didn't have that in Montreal. And it's
Really?
interestingly, when I moved to Berlin, I was
Huh.
like, wow, this is amazing.
Oh, interesting. Because me, it
Yeah.
was really the, well, not the, I don't know if it's the opposite, but all of a sudden, being in Montreal, I had to look for my people. When I grew up all my life, you have to look for like the association or the group, and all of a sudden there's like Black association. If you go at school, if you go in school, if you are in school in the Caribbean, there's no Black book club. It will be everyone. There's just book club. There's no like Afro Caribbean dance class. We're just, you know what I mean. And so all of a sudden, I had to look for my people, but also respond to the box that was built around me. Like I had to change my behavior. And I'm telling you this now. I was young, I'm telling you this now as an adult, but I realized that I had to change who I was. Like for example, I love to wear like hoodies and stuff like that, and but all of a sudden I have to look non-threatening. When you are already not a threatening person, to try to not look threatening, it's a whole, smile more. I don't, it's things that I did not have to think about when I was in the Caribbean. It's behavior that I did not have to readjust. And I had to mold myself in a way because of that new box, and it took me a while to unmake that box. It's when I moved to Austria, not because there are more Black people, but because I started reading more books. I started reading James Baldwin, and I was like, oh, that box is not mine. Actually, that box was put onto me. This idea, this label, these things, this behavior that I'm supposed to be, this person that I'm supposed to be, that they expect me to be. It is in their mind. I am not that. Does that make sense?
That's part of the first step of unmaking your box, being aware of the box, that these labels, like you said, that you're not supposed to wear a hoodie because it's too threatening, is completely a construct of their mind. In my case, it's a little different because I also lived in the United States, and that's where I felt it when I lived in Florida. Let me tell you
Ooh,
about the box.
Florida. Oof. Okay.
I felt the box, in Florida. I felt it. People were confused about the way I spoke. They're like, you don't speak like her. And they would literally point to someone who, we shared
Yeah.
the same skin color,
Yeah.
completely different people with different stories, different backgrounds, but you do not sound like her.
Yeah.
And I would ask, what does that mean? Well, no. Okay, I did know. but
Yeah.
um, but they don't realize it. There's a lot of in people creating the box for other people. There's lots of ignorance, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I'm not necessarily sour or angry or frustrated because I could recognize that there's so much ignorance, especially for people who have not grown up in communities where they had the privilege to share with different cultures and
Mm.
inter-exchange and whatnot. So, but of course, it's not my job to educate someone as to why
Yes.
Black people could sound differently
Yes.
and why I could sound like this, whatever this means. But at the same time, as me being who I am, and as you know, I'm really into mindfulness, I do feel it's my work to show them compassion and understanding.
Oh,
So that
yes.
in return, they could show me understanding. And not that I necessarily care if they see me as a person or not, because I know I am a person, that they have this little doubt the next time they speak to someone who looks like me. Oh, wait, they are also their own person. And they will have their own way of speaking and behaving. And we are not a monolith and we don't all act the same. And that might create that little seed of, wait, let me think before I say something.
Yeah.
Or think, or let me even think differently.
Yeah, no, for me, the hardest part is I mean, not anymore, but like love and compassion. Because when I arrived in Austria and I started reading, James Baldwin, etc., etc., and I understood the concept of blackness and the whole "I am not your Negro," which is a part of his work. I became enraged because like, how dare you treating me this way when I am nothing like this? When I was mad at the world for the box that they put me in, but then I was like, actually, love and compassion, complete love and compassion. I must have love and compassion for everyone if I want to have love and compassion for me. I must have I must have for people what I want for the world. Does that make sense? Like I must
Yes.
extend to them love and compassion because I want you to treat me with love and compassion. I don't want you to be angry at me. I don't want you to be mad at me. And I know how it feels to receive anger and hatred, etc., etc. And I wish that on no one, even though it can be easy to wish that on someone who wishes you harm or someone who insulted you, etc., etc. But I'm like, I can't do that actually. No matter what, I have to have love and compassion for you. But my one of my questions is still in why do you think we need boxes then? Like what is that the need for the boxes, for those boxes?
Are you asking me why you think people still put others in boxes and
Yeah, like
themselves?
why do you think they put you in that box? They had to put you the necessity to put you in the box of like, well, why do you talk? Why don't you talk like her?
That's an excellent question, Solon. Thank you so much for asking it. I I think my opinion, right, is the box is putting others in boxes is merely a habit pattern of the mind.
Okay.
It's completely automatic. And it doesn't start with an action, meaning it doesn't start with like putting someone in a box and then like let's say being physically aggressive towards them. Nor does it start with being verbally aggressive or ignorant towards them, being like, why do you sound like that?
That's true. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it doesn't start like that. No, the pattern starts with the mental thought of even the pattern starts with the mental thought of automatically, instantly putting them in a box. They're different. They're odd. Other. I'm different. I'm other.
Without even
We are not
meeting
the
them,
same.
without even
We are
meeting
not
them
connected.
sometimes.
It's automatic. It's automatic. They don't do it on purpose. It's like I don't know if you've ever walked down the street with a friend who is more on the negative side, and they're like, "Oh, look at that person wearing these pants or these shoes, or look at their hairstyle, especially in Berlin. Oh, look at what are they wearing?" But even having the thought of what are they wearing, is already putting them in a box. So unless we start to deprogram, uncondition, decondition ourselves to not even have that mental thought, then we will keep on putting others in boxes. And the more we keep on putting others in boxes, the more we put ourselves in a box, the more we give other people to give permission to put us in a box. And how do you stop this like habit pattern of the mind? A lot of meditation.
Yes.
a, a
Oh,
lot of meditation.
yes.
That's my
Yes.
thing, but other people could do it in other ways.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. For me, meditation,
Find success in different ways.
I will never shut up about meditation. I would advise everyone, you need to meditate. You need to sit down and meditate. It will change your life. Meditate. I'm not telling you to do the 10 course but meditate. Learn how to be mindful. Exactly, exactly. And so what I'm hearing is like first it starts with yourself. First it starts with unmaking your own box or becoming aware of your own box so that you don't put other people in boxes. Because I'm telling you this because I feel like this is the solution to a lot of problems. Like for me, self-love, for example, the more I love myself, the more I love people. Self-love is never for isolation purposes. And I feel like also the more I understand myself, the more I understand the world, the more I have compassion for myself, the more I have compassion for the world. And so what I'm hearing is before even starting trying to stop making other, like trying to stop putting other people in boxes, do the work with your own box?
I would actually encourage to do it simultaneously. Meaning, as you are unmaking your own box, be aware that those thoughts that you have of other people, you're automatically putting them in a box. So have that awareness to not put other people in box as you're doing your work, which is daily, by the way. It doesn't happen in a 3-hour workshop. So that you are becoming a better person. And at the same time, without that other person knowing it, you're uplifting that person just by not sending them any negative thoughts.
Yes.
That that makes a difference in the world.
And you mentioned
And
your
it really
workshop,
does.
and I was blessed enough to attend your 3 hours workshop, which was absolutely fantastic. Like honestly, fantastic work. Again, I went in without knowing what was going to happen. You told me to come. I was like, yeah, of course I'll be there. Just tell me when. I'll be there. And I do that often this year, which is great. I'm opening myself up to the world. That's great. So you have this amazing 3 hours workshop where you accompany us, show us, teach us how to unmake our own boxes, or at least how to start the process of unmaking our own boxes. Because, like you say, it's a daily practice and it's something that requires, it's a lifelong work. Because, I think that box, as soon as you unmake a box, another box pops up. And so I love your workshop. How much can you tell us about the workshop?
So, like you said, it's something daily that you have to keep on doing, on making boxes. And so I already described the first step, right, where we're aware of the box. In the workshop, it goes through the 3 steps of unmaking the boxes. The first step being aware of the box. The second step, which once it's what's on the inside.
Yeah.
What's on the inside? That is kind of fun. So using a creativity such as painting or writing or whatever the workshop attendee best wants to express themselves, they determine things that they value in on their inside, actions and behaviors that they respect, that they love about themselves, their passions, their values, their core values, and they draw or write all of this inside the box. I could quickly give you a glimpse of what my inside the box looks like. And there are really no rules except getting in touch with your true core and letting that come out. No one is going to see inside your box except you or whoever you choose to share it to. So you can really be free to explore what is it that you're most excited about, that you love the most, that you're most proud of about yourself.
Yeah.
One thing I wrote about myself and that I like to, when I'm feeling a little down, I drew a little megaphone and I wrote, "You've spoken up for those who couldn't." And I am very proud of that. And that is part of the second step of the workshop. And the last step of the workshop, so we've already created awareness about the box, we've unmade the box and determined what's inside the box. And the last step is creating your own adventure. How do we do that? As you already know, we have an exercise that we do together where you kind of determine what you want to do or have. And then I guide you through this activity where you get concrete steps to reach those goals. And and in the workshop we do there's a lot, right?
Yeah.
There's meditation, and there are group activities, there's lots of creativity, there's a lot of introspection work where you're just focusing on yourself. But for me, what's most important is that the workshop attendees come away with just a spark of, hey, I could do this. I could create the change I want to see in my own life. Not only can I create it, I will start today.
Oh, it does. You are succeeding. If that's your goal, then it's success because it does create like I was surprised at how much I took out of that workshop. Like really, like the box is still on my desk and is not leaving my desk. So is the workbook. And I don't know, it does something. It's something that is energetic. I don't know, but it does something to you to really sit down, be surrounded by people who are on the same mission, to sit down and really and do those exercises, to understand about the box concept, to be aware of your own box. Just that is, I feel like it's such a trigger, like a good trigger, right? And I love the fact that we have time to sit down and to think about ourselves, not in a narcissistic social media way, but it's like, who do I want to be and who I am? What do I love about myself? And that we can be unapologetic about the things that we love about ourselves without feeling like, oh, I'm arrogant. No, no, you're not arrogant. You love that you are caring, loving, whatever the case may be, right? And so it's very it's very interesting. And what I realize is another thing that we have in common is joy and like fostering joy and happiness in our lives, right? And when we hear about and make your box and get decolonize your mind or all of these big sentences, it can sound like such a serious endeavor. How do you still foster joy and lightness in a path that feels so like heavy in a way, when we talk about making boxes, it feels so like, god damn.
Oh, another excellent question.
Do my best.
I love your questions, and thank you so much for asking them. My vision, I shared my mission with you, but my vision is to unmake unnecessary pain and suffering in this world. You use the word heavy. Oh boy, are things heavy in this world. I don't even have to go into details. One just has to
Open your
read
phone.
the newspaper, an article on your phone, and it's a good question because it is heavy. Not only is it heavy, it's extremely sad. But for me, the saddest part is that it is so unnecessary. How we as human beings treat other human beings and cause their pain is so absolutely unnecessary. So this whole unmaking boxes really like stems from a place of necessity for everyone in this world, regardless of where they were born, regardless of status, regardless of color. In order for them to be able to live a life where they could find their joy and have the privilege to do whatever it is they want to do or be or have without having other people impose their
Limitations on them. Yeah, yeah.
limitations, but also straight up destroy them. Like literally destroy their lives where they never have the chance to develop their dreams. Then everyone needs to stop othering. How do we stop othering? We stop placing people in boxes. We inherently understand that if I am going to bomb your community, I am destroying myself because
Yes. Oh my god.
we are connected. So whatever I do to you, good or
Yes. Oh
bad,
my god. Yeah.
I do to myself. Why not choose to do good to someone else, even if they don't look like us, speak our same language? Why not choose to do good to them? Because then I do good to my soul, to the whole core, to I just do good. And that for me is quintessential in this whole making boxes or call it whatever you want. But
Different
in order
names,
to
same
spread
purpose.
joy, we need to allow other people to be joyous. And in order to have joy ourselves, we need to not cause harm to anyone in this world.
I just love it because it is such what you just articulated is such a fundamental part of my, I don't know how to call it, paradigm, beliefs, whatever the case may be. I remember hearing that quote from Nelson Mandela, very cliche of me for a quote, but you know what? The dude did say great things. And he said something, I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of, I cherish my freedom deeply, but I care even more about yours. Because, and I heard that, I was like, my God, this is it. And I remember I was young when I was hearing that. And I was like, this is it. Because yes, I care about my freedom, please. But I'm only free when you are free, baby. As long, if there are three people in the room, there's Solène, Veronica, and George. If Solène decide to say something mean or to do something mean or to forbade George to wear pants, I decide right now I am limiting George's freedom. You don't do that. Okay, my freedom is still intact, but I feel like as soon as I say that, as soon as I limit George's freedom, I am implicitly accepting that it is something that is okay. And so George will turn around to Veronica and say, well, I cannot wear pants, you cannot wear hats. And yes, my little freedom is still intact. But then Veronica will turn around and try to limit my freedom. And it's like, that's not, that's not, it's my freedom is very important, but I will fight for yours even more because your freedom guarantees my freedom. And
I would
everything that I do to you, sorry, everything that I do to you, I accept that it will at some point be done to me. Go ahead.
No, sorry to have
No,
interrupted.
go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I what you said at the very end, actually, where you said that everything I do to you, that you will accept that it will eventually be done to me or could be done to me, that is key. But I would even argue that at the moment you told George, hey, I forbid you to wear these pants, you are also limiting yourself immediately. You don't have even to wait for someone like Veronica or me to say, hey, Soren, hey, don't wear that. No, you're already limiting yourself because you've already created this paradigm
Yes.
where hey, limitations are acceptable, and if I tell other people, then I should also limit myself. But the beauty of it by unmaking boxes is that the more you like let people be who they are, you're giving yourself permission
To
to
be
just
who you
be
are.
you, do what you want to do. And you've said this before in your podcast, we contain multitudes. And I cannot agree more. We contain so many multitudes. So using labels, which is something we also do in the 3 hour workshop, we actually use the labels
Yes.
people have said about us and then we say about ourselves. You internalizing labels such as I am a lawyer or I am a nurse or I am a good person limits us because we could be all of these things and we could have many characteristics without having to have only like I am a lawyer, which means hey, perhaps I'm a shark or perhaps I'm a bit cold or like all these like assumptions about what lawyers are, they're irrelevant, you know?
But people are sometimes making identity out of those labels. Like, how would you say, what would you say to someone who's built an identity around being a lawyer or being, I don't know, etc., etc.? Because it's hard to just get rid of those labels sometimes, because you grew into them and you made them maybe part of who you are, your profession or whatever, your face, your what, how you look good or you're good in fashion. What would you say to someone who does not really want to get rid of those labels because it's scary, it's getting rid of a part, it feels like you might get rid of a part of your identity and who you are?
That is a very good question. And identity. Whew, okay. So what I would say to these people, like, would be to be careful with their language. Instead of saying something like, I am a lawyer, I know this verb doesn't exist, but I lawyer, you know? I am a nurse, I nurse. I am a student. Oh, I study. The reason why this I am doesn't leave room for much else. And it places trick in our mind. It places trick that, hey, this is my identity. I am a lawyer, hence I must act like a lawyer. What does a lawyer act like? A, B, C, D. Okay, so let me check the boxes. Now, if you do lawyering, that leaves much room for all your other passions and activities that you do.
Okay.
Oh, I do lawyering. I also paint. I also do algebra at night and solve equations on my phone app. It leaves so much room for other things as opposed to latching onto this one identity, which is literally putting yourself in a box. Not literally, but figuratively putting yourself in a box, and it could suffocate people who latch onto these identities.
Yeah, because
And
I
it
feel
doesn't allow
sorry.
them to explore as well. It doesn't allow them to explore other passions that they may have.
It's limiting. By identifying yourself with those labels, you are actually limiting yourself. Even though it might sound freeing at because again, thinking about all of this, some labels or some boxes, they can feel freeing at first. I am thinking about people maybe discovering or exploring their gender identity or their sexuality, right? Where we grew up in this heteronormative whatever thing that we're in, this binary world. And then all of a sudden you feel that you discover that queer box or that transgender box or that etc. And at first it may sound like a comfortable box, and then it may feel hard to. I mean, maybe sexuality is it's a like particular example, but I was thinking about the fact that maybe some boxes and some label, they feel great at first, and it may be scary to just like put them on your box and cross them. It's the exercise, like cross the label and get rid of it, because it feels good to identify as a fashionable person or to identify as, but like you say, it's a slippery slope, because as soon as you identify yourself with something, you're limiting yourself inherently. By saying you're that, you're saying that you're not something else. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And even this like binary world that we live in, that okay, women or men, and now we've seen that there are many people who don't fit in the woman or man boxes, and society often pushes them to choose a box. Oh, well, you have to be in
Yeah.
order for us to understand you, you have to be in a box, and then or choose a non-binary box. But this whole system of having to choose boxes, yes, perhaps it makes society able to better understand, but not really understand people, because you're not understanding the individual
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. Yes.
But then let's say I choose to be a woman. Does that mean I have to act like what a woman is supposed to act like? Who decides what a woman is supposed to act like? And does that mean I'm not giving myself permission to move into the different states I'm feeling on different days? If on a different day I feel like a different gender, you know, it's
It's powerful, and like I just want to just take a moment on what you just said. The fact that it is for society to understand you. Like I need to put you in that box for my understanding, and and of course they don't understand us, but there is this purpose behind the boxes. It's not necessarily for you, but it's for society to categorize you. And you wrote something else that says, at the end, no, I played along and placed myself in these boxes in order to be understood. So sometimes you would accept to be in some boxes just to feel understood, just to feel seen. Does that?
yeah. I mean, I think when I was younger, right, I accepted labels that were placed on me so that others could understand me better, so that they were better able to place me and be like, oh, okay, so you're Haitian Canadian. Okay, that means that, okay, you grew up in Canada, so you're not Haitian, and people might not realize that by saying these things they could be hurtful and
Yep.
ignorant.
Yep.
Haitian,
Yep.
you know, and so insulting my whole roots and whatnot. But yeah, I used to play along, but then with this whole like realization that these labels that are imposed on me, I do not have to accept them, then it's so liberating because me as Veronica, I could love this Haitian Canadian identity, so to speak, but at the same time, love a bunch of different cultures, explore
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of different cultures, have appreciation for everyone, not be limited to this idea of what people in my culture are supposed to act
And
like.
you
For
create
example,
your identity. You create
they
what it
create.
means to be Asian Canadian by being you. Like by definition, if you are Asian Canadians or you are Asian Canadian, and I feel like identity is something that should be created, not something that should be like plastered upon you and be like you are that, and that means that. It's like no, you create your identity, and I can relate to that in the sense that even in the Caribbean, sometimes people wouldn't believe that I'm from the Caribbean, even though like I was raised like that's where I spent my whole life. But because of the way I speak, when I speak French, I don't necessarily have a Caribbean accent that's very heavy, that is caricatural of the French Caribbean accent, right? It is a caricature, or the way that I dress. That's because of my mom. My mom is very like fashionable lady. But even in the Caribbean, sometimes I would, even within that box, I wouldn't fit because it's like, but you don't have an accent. So what are you then? Like it's bothering me the way you speak. You don't have an accent. Are you really from there? Or like, I don't know, the way you dress. First of all, what is it with the way that I dress? I dress very well. Thank you very much. But and sometimes even those boxes don't make any sense because like you say, it is to be understood, but people don't necessarily they don't even understand you even when they put you in a box, when they force you into the so-called box of your identity. So I can relate of trying to be understood, but then you're like, no.
That's the perfect example when you said like, you grew up in the Caribbean and people can't place your accent. They're like, huh.
Mm.
I think fundamentally what's problematic is that we try to group people and form one image of them in our heads. So, Caribbean woman, this is your image. Wait, you don't match my image.
Be more digestible. Yeah.
My brain can't compute. But
Mm.
if we could practice, and again, it's a daily practice, to see every single person, regardless of where they're from, as an individual, then the world would be so much better for it because then I get to know Solène, not as a Caribbean woman, but as Solène.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your story? What do you like? Let me understand you, not as part of a label, but for who you are and what you stand
And I
for.
want people to understand how freeing it is for yourself. If you want to see me for who I am, you accept to see yourself for who you are. Like it's just don't, it's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful to just listen to people's story, and we're gonna talk about, the importance of community. But it's like if you allow me to be fully me, you allow yourself to be fully yourself. That's the beauty of it. It's just at the end of the day, if you want to be selfish, do it because it will benefit you, and of course you will also meet amazing people and expand your knowledge, etc., etc. But the beauty of it is that by freeing other people of their boxes and your expectation of what they should do, what they should be, and if when you stop being bothered by how people behave because you think that they're not behaving the way that they're supposed to behave, or you think that they don't think the way they're supposed to think, you are freeing yourself. And for me, that's the most magical part of it. Is this moment where you free someone to free yourself, and when you free yourself, you free someone, right? And that's something that is core to my paradigm, to my beliefs. The fact that it's this freedom moment of I free myself to free you, you free yourself to free me, and then we just live free and happy, and you live so much. You live a bother free. You live unbothered because people are living their existence, and you are happy with that. And just to talk about community, because I'm I've been thinking a lot about our community lately, and in your workshop, which was fantastic, I'm gonna say it again. We there were other people. I was not alone. There were other people, right? And we were doing this process of unmaking our boxes separately but together. I mean, everyone had their box, but we were also, together, because unmaking your box can be very individual, but it also needs community. And I find that it's actually very empowering to go through this together. And something that made me think about community. It's a little monologue, but I assure you that at the end of this, there is a question. In the Caribbean, on my island, Guadeloupe, there was a blackout, 29 hours without electricity whatsoever on the entire island. 300,000, 400,000 people blackout for 29 hours. And it was an intentional blackout. It was an employee from the electricity community company who was bothered, annoyed, sad. I mean, something happened. I think he was not given. I don't want to talk about his motive, but it was something very selfish and, in my opinion, bad. And so he decided to take it on the entire community and shut down the entire power for the entire island. Long story short, everything was fine. Nothing major. A few stores were broken into, maybe. So far, I have not heard of any death related to that, but we were very close to that for people who has, for example, oxygens in their house, or some people who needed, no death, but we were close to, it was close to become very catastrophic. And the only thing I remember talking to my parents, and the only thing that I could think about was, that is why we need community. Because in that moment, where all of us were just in the dark or in the pandemic, right? The only saving grace is the community. And the only way to survive, because now that was intentional, it's someone who shut it down. But talk about the next storm in the Caribbean, and there is no power, there is no anything, right? Our only saving grace to make it out alive and to make it out okay is to know who our neighbors are, and to build community, and to help one another, and to love one another, and to care for one another, right? And to see one another, to know that, oh my God, I don't have electricity, so that means that my neighbor does not have electricity. I know that he needs, I don't know, light to cook his dinner, whatever the case may be, right? To think about one another. And I'm saying this to talk about the importance, and in your perspective on the importance of community in the process of unmaking your box. Does that make sense? What do you think the necessity of community to unmake your box is?
Another very good question.
My God.
I think community comes from the process. As opposed to doing it together, I think it's a byproduct of not only forming a community, but wanting to be part of a community. And the reason being is that you lose fear of the other. We're often fearful of other people, which sometimes limits us from reaching out or even sending someone a smile.
Yeah.
A stranger a smile, We're like, oh, we don't know them. We're not, But by losing that fear, because you've done the work of unmaking your box and the box of others, you send that smile. They send that smile back. And there you have that little spark
Of community.
of a community. So I really do believe it's a byproduct from it. It's interesting because we're taught from different religions or school of thoughts to do unto others as we would like to be done unto us. Every religion preaches this.
Yeah. Yet,
If we really, really think about it, do we actually follow this adage? Do we actually do this? No, just through our thoughts of sending that stranger, instead of sending that stranger a smile, we might unintentionally or unconsciously send them some negative energy. Like, what are they wearing?
We do it in theory. We don't do it in practice.
But what if we were to do it in practice with every single interaction? That would be some heavy, quick community building
That's
stuff.
revolutionary and that's scary, I feel. I think for a lot of people, because like, what if I send a smile and they don't send it back? Well, then it doesn't do it anyway. That's my answer. Do it anyway.
Do it anyway. And on the other hand, if I don't want for someone to use harsh words towards me, let it be in my head or let it be verbally, why would I then use harsh words towards them? If we all follow the simple rule to not do things to people that we don't want to be done upon us, stealing stuff, harming them or whatnot, and at the same time doing things to people that we do want to be done to us, sending them positive energy, being kind to them, showing them compassion, using words of compassion, then this world will be a much, much better place than,
Yes,
than
but,
it is
but
now.
you know, as you're saying that, and I believe, like, I agree with you completely, but I can hear the naysayers being like, well, I mean, isn't that a utopia? I'm like, yes, it is. I think it is, but I think believing in utopia is good. But also, I feel like we're not, as much as we're talking about a better world, we're not asking you, I don't think you're asking people to save the world. I think you're asking people to change their behavior in their immediate environment. So, like, don't think about what's happening maybe 8,000 kilometers away from you. Just try right here, around you, with your friends, with your family, with the cashier. Send a smile to the cashier or to your postman, or I don't know. Like, because I feel like when we say that, and I agree with you 100%, everything that you say, but I can hear people being like, well, that's a little like Buddha-ish, don't you think? Yes, it is. But, that's a little like, that's a big utopia to wish that.
It's so funny you mentioned the cashier, Soren, because brilliant cashiers are notoriously known here for being, not so nice. So I hear a lot of negativity about cashiers.
Really?
But yeah, about like cashiers from Reve or Lidl or anywhere, right?
Maybe
Because
not. I'm an Edeka girl, so
focus
I don't
on
know. I'm an Edeka and Haussmann
scanning
girl,
your
and
thing.
they're nice.
But you said they're nice, but there's probably a reason for it, right? There's a probably because I find them nice, but because my reaction towards them is always kind. So the cashier, I always ask the cashier how they're doing,
For sure.
I always ask them how they do it, and they're like, oh, and they are always nice to me. So we also have to realize that we can't just like blame everything on the outside world and be like, oh, no community, everyone's rude and whatnot, but they will react to how you treat them. So just ask your cashier how they are, or
You
just
receive what
smile,
you're putting
thank
out.
them like from the heart, and you'll be surprised or not that they will react in kind.
I assure you, I have never had a bad experience. To be fair, I do say, I'm a very happy custom. And actually, when I'm not happy, when I know that I'm in a bad mood, I take those like self checkout things because I know that I'm like, I'm not going to give you good energy, lady. So I'm not even going to go to your, I'm not even going to go there. I'm just going to take my thing and get out. But I do find it very important to put that energy out and be like, hey, and have a good day. I mean, I say it in German, of course, like, and have a great day. And I have never had no bad experience. They always answer to me, and I don't expect them to be maybe overly joyous. But even if you just answer to me, I'm happy about it. And I love the fact that you stress the fact that what you put out is what you receive, and you cannot just say, well, the world is a shitty place and everyone's mean and there's no need for community and no one is smiling to me. Are you smiling to people? What is the energy, what is the vibration, if we talk about vibration, that you are putting out into the world, and that may be also like that's a reason why maybe the world is not answering to you the way we're talking about it, the way you're talking about it right now. And because going back to your workshop, I remember Khadija, which was one of the attendees at the last circle that we did, the last question that you asked. She looked at me and she said, "Be compassionate with yourself." And it sounds like a very trivial thing to say and something that is easy to say, but I know that she meant it in that very second, and it changed the whole thing. And maybe she doesn't even remember saying that to me, but that really made me think of the importance of community, because in that moment I felt seen, I felt heard about what I was talking about, the last question that you asked us, our takeaways. And I was like, damn, it felt good at that moment. And we created a small community, because 3 hours before we were complete strangers, and then we had a few laughs and we talked and we shared, and in a way we became a small community of a few people. And to have someone who's seen you, who heard you, and who understood what you were going through, to look at me and be like, yeah, but be compassionate with yourself. I was like, oh, actually, yes. Like, she's correct. And in that moment, I was like, yeah, this is what we need, community as well. But like you say, it will happen. It is because we were unmaking our boxes that we ended up creating community. Like you say, is a byproduct. After going through the 3 steps, we ended up creating that community. And Khadija was like present enough to be like, hey, I see you, and I see that you need to hear, like, relax, be compassionate with yourself. And even me, like, I will remember their stories, I remember their faces, and I'm invested in their unmaking. I want them to unmake their goddamn boxes, even though I don't know if I'll ever cross paths. I think I will, but no matter where they are, there is this sense of community of like, I want you to be good. And I think at the end of the day, it's I am good. I want to be good, because I want you to be good. Does that make sense?
It does. And it makes me so happy to hear that you, in 3 hours, had this sense of community.
Yes.
I mean, it's not fluke, right? Because if you remember the 3 rules, it was 1, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
2, be kind to others. And 3, come with an open mind. So in your group, you could already tell the people were there. They're already kind people.
Yes.
And it felt already good to share and to be understood, and everyone was listening to each other.
Yes.
And I find that absolutely beautiful. And you were listening, and you were offering your input and encouragement to other people.
I surprised
as well.
myself, and I think this is what people need to understand. You will surprise yourself when you will meet people, and also we underestimate how many people are good. Actually, you'll surprise yourself being very kind to others.
Yeah, and to what you said about sending positivity out there, essentially we are all vibrations.
Yes.
If we go to our deepest subatomic particle, I'm not a scientist, but you know what I'm saying. We're all vibrations,
Yes.
right? So positive vibrations will be attracted to other positive vibrations, and it will line up. And so when you spread your positivity out there with your smile, let it be at the cashier, then you're sending something out that's real, and you're getting it back. And I really respect the fact that you go to the self-checkout when you're sending out some negative vibrations as to not affect other people. And I think that is very considerate and thoughtful of you.
Well,
And
I'm realizing that as I'm talking to you, because I'm like, the only reason why I'm going to self-checkout, because I do not want to do free labors for those big companies, but that's another conversation about capitalism, but whatever. The only reason why I'm doing free labor for you is because I know that I will not be nice to the cashier, and I do not want that. And so, you know what, I'm going to take my things and pay myself and do the free labor, but at least I will not be bothered. I won't bother anyone, and I won't I will not share that bad. I will deal with it myself, but it's by talking to you that I'm like, actually, this is how I deal with, when I'm in bad vibrational mode. That's how I keep it to myself. But just to we're coming towards the end. I really want to say thank you for the work that you're doing. The world need way more people like you, people with your vision, people with your desires, people with your empathy, your compassion, your love. We need more leaders like you, and you were really good at what you do. Just I need you to know that, because you were a little like modest at the workshop, and I was like, no, 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 hear it out, hear it out. You're really good at what you do. You're good at creating community. You're good at making people feeling seen and heard, and being present. And I just wanted to take a moment to tell you that you are really good at encouraging people to live authentically. And I want you to know that you're amazing at what you do, and keep shining your light. And by the simple fact that you are shining your light, James Baldwin said it. James Baldwin said it. By shining your light, you are empowering someone else to shine their own light. And this is what you are doing. And it is fantastic. Take it in.
Thank you. Thank you, Solène. And that's something I need to work on,
I know. I
like
saw it at the workshop. I was like,
accepting,
girl, if you don't
like
stop,
this.
if you start, you better stop taking all these compliments.
But thank you. But I am realizing more and more that, of course, it's not about me.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that there's a domino effect.
Yep.
You came to my workshop. I got to share some of this positivity with you. You asked me to be part of your podcast, and perhaps one person could hear this and take some of the stuff we said and put it into practice, and that the person that they will affect positively will affect someone else positively, and so on and so on. So it does have a domino effect. So every single interaction that we have with every single person in this world, and I know it's hard sometimes with our family because they know how to push our buttons, but especially our family or closer ones. Every single interaction is an opportunity to spread compassion and kindness and understanding. And it will have a domino effect. So thank you, Solène, for your kind words. I really appreciate it. It's not about me. It's about the mission. It's about the vision. But thank you.
And my last question to you would be, what would a world without boxes look like? Take your time. Take your time with it. I can ramble if you want to think about it. I can talk about what I've done this morning, what I eat, what I plan to eat. I can ramble. And when you're ready, you can jump in with your answer. I plan on getting
Do you have an
pastas.
answer?
Huh?
Do you have an answer to this?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm asking the questions. The question that I'm asking is, I'm asking. I don't have the answers. That's your job. I have the questions. You tell me the answer.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I will get emotional by answering that question because wow, one life lost would be one too many in everyone's mind. There will be no such thing as collateral damage. No such thing. So yes, you used the word utopic before. But a life without boxes would mean that we are not othering people and that we would want the best for them and we will do unto them as we do unto ourselves, which means we would not harm them. We would cause them no harm in any which way, indirectly or directly. And as you can imagine, the result would be everyone being allowed to live their life with dignity, with respect, with love and compassion shown towards them, and understanding. And this world is a world that I would love to live in, that I do not live in right now, but that, like you use the word community, that we're starting to build these small communities that feel the same way, that do the same thing, that are very careful with their actions, their words, and their mental thoughts as to not spread any harm and only spread positivity and compassion and kindness.
Yeah. God, I wish. I wish. I think we can create it. We can create that in a little. at our level. Maybe if you find the right people, your world can exist without boxes. Maybe not the world, but maybe at a small sub-particular level, at a small individual level, in your little house, in your little neighborhood, in your little on the floor of your apartment building. I don't know. Maybe you can create that world where there is no boxes. But thank you for putting in the work, for showing us the way, for showing us the path. You can just teach us how to take the path, but you cannot force us to take the path. I know. But thank you for doing that anyway. And just where people can find you, when can find more about you.
So my website is www.unmakingboxes.com. All the information is up there.
And she's amazing, you guys. So thank you so much for sitting down with me today, for sharing your brilliance. I know I'm going to see you again for sure, but thank you so much for sitting down with me, for sharing all of that, for answering my questions, and for taking the time and being
Thank
who
you
you
for
are.
your excellent questions, Solen.
Don't get me started, because I'm going to get emotional, because it's really important for me to ask good questions and to be a good interviewer. So I don't not too much compliments, because I'm not going to survive this. But thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you for being you. That's it. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Have fun at making boxes.
Yes. Bye.
Bye, Solen.